at 6th and Pine. That's what you see in the picture there. Basically, if you're coming over the bridge and want to take a right, that right turn pocket will be closed for night work. We've got to do some work with CenturyLink's fiber optic line. So that'll be happening from January 16th through February 3rd from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Also, the exit 114 eastbound and westbound ramps will have a one-lane closure and shoulder closures in that area to install the light standards. And those dates are January 9th through 11th next week. Ongoing traffic impacts, we will have those periodic one-lane closures on Grand Avenue Bridge for the structural walls between 7th and 8th Street. Those dates are next Tuesday, January 10th, and then a few additional dates in January we'll have to do that one-lane closure. As far as the utility work goes, we're going to be disinfecting the new water line and pressure testing it here shortly. Also, we'll install conduit, that's a typo, actually installing the wires within the conduit for CenturyLink. And then the utility work is ongoing in the Hot Springs parking lot. The 7th Street Station, boy, that's really coming out of the ground now, isn't it, with the roof. The masonry will be installed on the landing structure here this month. Also, framing of the elevator tower will be completed, and masonry for the canopy structures will be done as well. And we'll also be putting up the railing for the pedestrian bridge. You can see that railing in the picture below. The structural walls, grading and forming and pouring of the structural walls will continue through the month. In the commercial area, that's wall Q and R, basically those two between 7th and 8th Street. We will be pouring the concrete walls this month for those. And on the horizon, we will be having the overlay start, the asphalt overlay start for the detour. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on this. Of course, this can't start until, the batch plants start going, and it probably be in March or February, but I will have more details for you, council, at your first meeting in February. Basically, the overlay, for your information, of course, will be new asphalt at the roundabouts and exit 114. We'll be overlaying all of Midland Avenue up to 8th Street, in fact, a little bit past it. We'll also be, of course, doing the connections and the square about in town, and then also US 6 from exit 116 down to exit 114. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Any questions for Tom? Okay, next we will open it up to citizens who want to speak to us about something not on this evening's agenda. I would just let everyone know that we are very aware that there might be a bit of concern out there about the fate of the recycling facility, and there will be a full agenda item to discuss that at our next council meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight. I'm not sure what the date is. 19th. So if you're here to speak to us about that, you might save your comments and come to the meeting in 2 weeks. But otherwise, I would invite anyone who has anything they would like to discuss that is not on the agenda. Go ahead.
I brought a little amusement, a little fun and maybe a little humor. And I want you just to think about this between now and the next meeting when you do talk about the recycle center. People are a lot like water and electricity. At least that's what I've kind of figured through my life. Not everybody, but a lot of them. They take the path of least resistance. That electricity does that when it goes right to the ground, or sometimes through us. So I'm going to give you a little demonstration here. And I also brought a couple of Band-Aids in case I'm not quite as good as I think I am. But this is a box. And you can take a box cutter, and it doesn't take too much.
I just kept worrying he was gonna whack his finger.
It's taken me a little bit of time to cut this thing in two, but you can take all this, put it in one of these garbage bags that's still available at city markets, it's not in Carbondale or Aspen, and just put it in the trash and send it to the landfill. It will never reach the recycling center. It's a whole lot easier to do than it'll ever be to drive to the dump. And there are a lot of people that I think use the recycle center that don't want to drive to the dump, that say this is far less than aggravation than driving to the new recycle center. So I just ask you guys, as you saw in the paper, Joe O'Donnell said, hey, go talk to the counselors, or talk to one in specific, and just encourage them to try to think about something else. You guys have made recycling pretty easy in this community. I use the center, I pay taxes in the city, I don't live in the city, but I pay the city more taxes than I do the county, and it's very convenient. I also have recycle at home, so I can, use either one, but after you put the recycle center in, a lot of people absolutely enjoyed, the use of it. So that's my first comment. Now I have two questions. Since you guys, I think, definitely have a better rapport with the State Highway Department than I do, in the front of Mr. Vac, or where Domino's Pizza is, it looks like the road's buckled. It's been that way for about 9-10 months. And every time you drive over with one of your snow plows, or the state's snow plows, it just jars the whole vehicle. It jars your cars, jars your trucks, doesn't make it good for anything. And I wonder how tough it'd be to fix that. That's the first question. Or maybe you can tell me where to go to get an answer. The next question is, I've heard at times that the dump is not accepting sewage from the sewage pumpers because they're out of cardboard. They mix the cardboard with the sewage when it's taken to the dump. Is it possible to send these trucks to a sewage plant that's only operating at half capacity and charge the trucks to dump there? I'm just curious.
Right, we typically don't answer questions
Yeah.
during this time, but the sewage that they're bringing is, my understanding is typically the sludge from the wastewater treatment plants. Maybe it's, or is it septic pumping, septic?
Yeah, septic pumping.
Septic pumping. There's a different reason why that usually doesn't go into the wastewater plants. It's because it's anaerobic, and most plants are aerobic, and the anaerobic smells really bad, so.
It does smell bad, Mike. And it doesn't have an adverse effect on the plant?
Yeah, it'll kill most plants are a activated sludge plant that have bacteria that are aerobic bacteria, and anaerobic sewage will kill the aerobic bacteria, and so then your plant doesn't work so good, so.
Well, no, it wouldn't if it's all plugged up like that. So I got a little education. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening, and please think about doing something else. I don't know, it's like Joe said, maybe the old rodeo or the old fairgrounds over by the airport, is that possible to think about something like that? Not near as convenient as where it is now, but it would work.
We will discuss all that in 2 weeks, yeah.
I should come back on the 19th then?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
You guys all
thanks,
have a
Joe.
happy new year.
You too. Mr. Corey.
John Corey, I was going to say something about recycling, but I'll wait on that. The other thing I want to talk about is the Atkinson Canal Trail that goes south from the Sunlight Bridge to where it goes up 3 Mile Creek. Since I think it was put in, we've always, or the city said, we're not plowing along the river because of a habitat protection, wildlife habitat protection, and it just seems, at least to the general public, that boom, just like that, you guys decided, well, we're going to plow it because we think it's safer to plow it. I did send a picture to Stephen Bersney here of that plowed area now that's a skating rink. It really isn't working, I don't think, like you guys were hoping that it was going to make it safer, because now everybody kind of walks over on the shoulders where the snow is because it's too slippery to walk where it's been plowed. And it just bothers me too that more worry didn't go into the wildlife habitat that we've been saying for 10 years we're protecting along there by not plowing. So something I hope you guys will talk about again. If you were doing it for safety, I don't know that you're accomplishing that. And I'm worried then too, because it's so icy, that then they're gonna come and put the sand, mag chloride, salt mixture on it, which is then just gonna leach right into the river. So he's got that picture you could pass around, you guys could look at. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Sir?
Yeah, yeah, okay. I'm sure everybody wants to see that picture that he said it was like Vietnam. Well, this is getting
Nick Kelly. First of all, I want to commend everybody on city council and everybody in the city who's been involved with the 14th Street pedestrian bridge project, because that's proceeding beautifully. I live not too far from there, and I'm amazed that in this weather that the bridge spans the Roaring Fork River already, and a lot of the flooring is in on the bridge even. So that's terrific. Good job, you guys. The second thing I want to comment on is an article that was in today's paper, Post Independent, about tiny houses that Aspen Ski Company is putting up at a basalt campground. And those houses are about 500 square feet, and they say they want to rent them for about $600 a month. And I think that includes utilities. I'm not clear about that. But the most important part about that is that this is a location for affordable housing that's ideal, according to the Glenwood Springs Post-Independent, because it's within about a block of a bus station. And I'd like council to consider the idea of giving some recommendation and guidance to the planning board that in the future, any affordable housing projects that they look at it through the filter of, are they really close enough to public transit in order to make sure that they're not going to cause more traffic in the city. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to us about something not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I will close that and bring it back to, or I will announce that it already happened. There was an agenda change. We moved the Grand Avenue Bridge update to follow the Pledge of Allegiance. So now council comments.
I would just say that the planning department and commission, they do look at public transit as part of development proposals and when it comes to housing. So that is something they do look at. I don't know if they get enough recognition for that, but that has always been something. And I'm not looking for a dialogue, but I wanted to answer your question.
And I will sort of address, even though he left, John Haynes' question, because that has been a question that I've had, and it's my understanding that CDOT is planning to resurface that area of Grand Avenue, 23rd to 27th or 30th or whatever it is. I don't have a timeline on that, and when I talked with Tracy Tulog, she didn't either. So, but it's something that I can certainly ask again.
I guess I would actually like to ask our staff to find out how we can get more information about their projects, because that was just overlaid, I don't want to say 6-8 years ago. And it was done very poorly because obviously the asphalt is busting up where they didn't even rotomill enough to get rid of the old epoxy paint lines, and the asphalt is coming off at the paint lines. It's like, duh, but, so I would just hope that we can, if they're going to disrupt our town repaving things, let's see if we can get them to do it in a better way. And I think one place, as we discussed this morning, that I would like to really look into is if we have to put some money into the rotomilling of Midland Avenue and Highway 6 when they're overlaying those. I guess I would like to investigate that. But, yeah.
I asked Terry to look into that, so I think it's
Okay.
logical.
Yeah.
I have comments.
Go ahead, Stephen.
I don't know how many of you, if I say the Songbird neighborhood, would immediately bring up Oriole and Bobolink Lane and that area. But I want to extend on behalf of the residents out there who have been in contact with me. A huge thank you to the public safety groups in the city of Glenwood Springs, the fire department especially, and the police department. There was a condominium fire there which threatened to engulf the entire community, and the fire department responded with all of their equipment and took care of it very quickly, and the police were there to help maintain order and keep things in check, and it saved what could have been a real disaster. And these people would just like the firemen and the policemen and the chiefs of both departments to know how grateful they are.
Thank you, Stephen. Any other comments? I have one brief comment. I would just like to thank the individual who, I don't know who it was, but over Christmas holidays, someone dropped a envelope with a note in it that contained $100 in cash for a stop sign they apparently ran over. And so I provided that to the city, and I would just like to thank them for whoever did that. So,
The handwriting looked familiar?
you know, it was a typed note. So,
Fingerprint analysis.
yeah, exactly. So, all right, so moving on, the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Leo and a second by Catherine to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is planning item 33-16, consideration of an amendment to an existing annexation agreement and the conceptual review of a major development proposal. The applicant is Craig Helm. The owner is First Baptist Church in Glenwood Springs. Location is 2225 Midland Avenue. Zoning is R4 residential transitional.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself
Ah.
from this item since I was not present for the first hearing, so.
Okay.
I also have a question. You probably covered it this morning. Are we taking public comment on this again tonight? or
Well,
do we-
that-
Well, that's actually, I'm going to run you through your
Yeah.
options right
Thank you
now.
very
Yeah.
much. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
Sure
just be
thing.
quiet.
So, as you know, this item at the last meeting in December, you closed the public hearing, gave specific direction to staff to redraft the annexation agreement with some specific terms. Since that time, the planning department had contact with the owners last week. At that time, the owner being First Baptist, at that time, they felt that they wanted a continuance, that they thought it would be better if it were continued, and so that was, as the packet deadline rolled up. The applicant had a different feeling when finally got in touch on Tuesday that would like the item to move forward for a decision tonight. And then on Wednesday, First Baptist also contacted the planning department and said we would like a decision on the annexation agreement as it existed in the packet prior to the direction by council.
Carl, that was Tuesday and Wednesday of this week,
Right, yeah.
not
As
last
in
week.
like
And
yesterday
I
and
have
2
to say,
days
you know,
ago.
the holidays, it's a tough period of time. But anyway, I guess where we're at on this is, because we sort of styled it in the packet for better or for worse as likely being a continuance. My recommendation is that if you were inclined to take new evidence from the applicant on this matter, that it would be best to continue it so that the public has an opportunity to come in and comment on whatever that information is that's being provided by the applicant. If you are inclined to simply make a decision on the matter based on the evidence that you had at the last hearing without any additional evidence, including the revised annexation agreement, I think you're in a position where you could do that legally, although I think it is somewhat problematic because we had thought there was a requested continuance at the end of last week, for better or for worse. I mean, I'm not, it wasn't a perfect scenario by any stretch of the imagination, and we just sort of got where we got to. All of that having been said, really, your options tonight are you can continue it again. You could take action on the record as it exists. You could reopen the hearing, although I think that that's fraught with some risk, because I think there would be an argument that the public really didn't know and didn't have an opportunity to comment fully on it. But those are really your options for this evening.
And the reason why the public may think that they didn't know or didn't have a fair chance to be here tonight, because
Right, there was a memo in the item that suggested that a continuance would be going on. Also, I mean, honestly, you guys closed the public hearing, so there may be a segment of the public that just believes that there's not going to be any additional comments. So I guess at this point, if you're inclined, and I know that the applicant would like to provide additional information, my feeling is, my recommendation to you, it's ultimately your decision, is that you continue that item so you can take that information in by reopening the public hearing at the next regular meeting, and that way also the public would have an opportunity to comment on it. And I think that creates the record both as fairly and as cleanly as we possibly can for the benefit of both the applicant and the public and you.
May I ask a question? Is the agreement that's in front of us tonight, a few moments ago you said the owner wanted to go back to the...
The owner and the applicant would like to,
When?
the version that was in the packet that you looked at originally,
Okay,
in
from
December. From December.
Okay.
You guys had given me direction to revise the agreement with some specific changes to eliminate use restrictions and things like that and make it less specific to a particular development. The feedback we've gotten is that at this point, the applicant and the owner would like you to take action on the previous version of that. But I really don't want to have a long discussion about that because I feel that kind of implicates reopening the public hearing. So,
I just wanted to clarify
Right.
which version we were looking at.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like we have kind of two decisions to make, or one choice to make, I guess. We can either continue it to the next hearing, and at that time, we could then decide whether we want to open it up for more comment or more input from either the applicant and if we do that, then we'll also...
if I may,
open it
Mr. Mayor, if you're
to
going to
public.
continue it over, I think it'd be very specific that you are going to take additional comments.
Okay,
I'd make that decision tonight so that both
Okay.
the applicant and the public are prepared to make comments.
okay. So we either continue it to take additional comments, or we decide based on the evidence that's been presented so far, so.
Is there going to be new evidence?
I think that, I think the applicant, and I'm going to speak for, I think you wanted to present some additional information, didn't you, Craig?
Some clarification with regard to your desire to unattach the project and some comments with regard to R4 and...
Are we going to see anything that we haven't seen before?
I think what he's talking about is information that you have not seen before. So, and I want to give, I mean, my desire is to make sure that both Craig and the public have a fair opportunity to talk about it.
So, from my standpoint, I would like to hear what Craig has to say, and I'd like it to be unfiltered, not in a short version of any kind tonight. I'd like to hear what the public has to say after the applicant's made his remarks with regards to the project. I think you're right, it's not fair to open that up tonight, because I think some of the people felt like there was a continuance, including myself, until this morning. So, in order to keep a fair and open hearing on this, in my opinion, we open it up at the next meeting. We announce that there will be public input, and the applicant will be able to speak at the next meeting, and that we continue it tonight so that we can get all of the information that both, if you will, both sides, I mean, the public, the applicant, us, can say what we need to say next meeting. And feel like we have had a fair hearing for everybody.
Right, and the other part of that is that Craig did want to put some additional information in the packet, and it was my call that we shouldn't do that because the public hearing had been closed, and so evidence had been closed on the matter. I think with you doing this, then we can have that information in your packet for the next time.
So if you guys want, I would move that.
Stephen had
Okay.
a comment he wanted to make.
Basically, I agree with what Todd said. I think it's really important when you're presenting new information that you make sure that you give it a fresh look, because otherwise that information is not germane to the project. And without us having a chance to look at it and the public having a chance to comment on it, it really, in my estimation, can't be included as a part of the project. So if it's really important to the project, it needs to have a full and complete hearing, and we need to have a really good look at it so that we know all the implications. So I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, we need to see that information in the next packet, have time to digest it. Have the community needs time to digest as well, if it is deemed significant or not. And to be fair to everybody, I think that's the only way to do this.
Is everybody gonna be here next meeting?
I'll be here.
Yeah. All right, so now I'd entertain a motion.
I move to continue this item to the next meeting, January the 19th,
At which time the public hearing will be reopened.
at which time the public hearing will be reopened.
Thank you.
All
I'd
right.
second that, Leo.
All right, we have a motion by Leo and a second by Todd to continue this public hearing to the next meeting on January 19th, at which time the public hearing will be reopened. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
McKinney, yes. Davis, yes. Gamble, yes. Leahy, yes. Steckler, yes. Bergen, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have ordinance number 36, series of 2016, and ordinance of the City of Glen Springs, Colorado, adopting a new section 070.13. Oh, yeah, we probably got to get Kathy first, sorry.
And then, I don't know, did you guys get an updated copy on the dais of this one?
I did not see
Okay.
it, no. Thank you. All right, so I'll reintroduce this. We have ordinance number 36, series of 2016, and ordinance of the City of Glen Springs, Colorado, adopting a new section 070.130.110 of the municipal code establishing uniform standards for deed-restricted affordable housing developments. This is the second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a work session this morning to go over changes that you had directed to be made to the ordinance at the last regular meeting in December. This should be it's a red line version, but the final version of that ordinance for the benefit of, I can't remember who was not, Leo and Matt. The outstanding issue that we talked about at this morning's work session was which impact fees might be waived as a component of this. We had a discussion that went on for about an hour, and the consensus at that time was, or the direction to me to include in the final version was water and sewer tap fees, which is actually the fee that we charge to physically connect to the line, water and sewer system improvement fees, school land dedication fees, and then fire and emergency service impact fees. Those were the four items out of the lengthier list that was proposed by one of the developer's attorneys of like every fee possible. Those were the four that council gave direction to be included. I think some of the rationale on the school land was that this is really trying to create housing opportunities for school teachers amongst other people who would be in that category, and so that there was some correlation between that and also just the sense on the fire impact fees that I think I'm trying to summarize here, and so tell me if I get it wrong, that that they have a fairly large impact on, say, an ADU, but then when you look at a really large project, there is a lot in the IFC already that makes for relatively or highly safe buildings kind of thing, and that maybe this was an okay place to give and take, recognizing that council may wish to come back and refine this depending on how useful it is. The other item that came out of the work session this morning is to take another look at how we deal with ADUs in general, but I think more specifically was the idea of creating an amnesty period to try to get people who currently have potentially bandit units to come in and get them signed up and on the books with the city underneath this program, allowing them to get those fee waivers, and then we're going to have a resolution back for you to take a look at the next regular meeting on that particular issue. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so. And I would just point out that, you know, with respect to this, this is a starting point, and we can massage it as we go, or if in 2 years we're so wildly successful that we're seeing, you know, a plethora of affordable housing units be developed, and then we can rescind this ordinance. So it's always a, you know.
No, and I want to.
Really happy and reduce more fees.
Yeah. Whatever, yeah, I mean, the point is this isn't, once it's passed, it's not written in stone. so.
Funny how that works.
And the waiver is for
Well, I should get
100%
more
of
of
the
it.
fees.
The waiver is for 100%, and so, because it's been about a month since we talked about this, so the waiver is for 100%, but then it is on a straight line amortization over 30 years. So you have the opportunity, if you get into the program and decide at
Yeah.
year 15, you don't want to be in the program anymore, you can pay the half of what your fees would have been
Okay.
to get out of the program.
I needed to be reminded of that.
Right, and then the other one is that the rate that is being set is an average at 100% of AMI. So no more than 120%, but averaging for all units at 100%. Obviously, if you only have one unit, you're gonna be charging no more than AMI, 100% of AMI rather, excuse me.
All right, any further questions for Carl? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open it up for any public comment. Don't all jump at once. Okay. Seeing no one that interested in talking about it, I will close the public comment and bring it back to council for discussion and/or a motion.
I could throw out a little bit of discussion. At first I wasn't really liking this whole idea of deed restriction and stuff, but the thing that I do like about where this one's headed is, this is a volunteer program. If you want to choose to do it, you can. It's not being crammed down your throat just because you know how to build. Just because you know how to build doesn't mean you have to build somebody else something for free. So this is a volunteer program, which makes sense. If you want to build free market units and you don't want to participate, don't. But I do think this has enough incentive in it to hopefully get us to get some rental apartments up here, which is the whole point of this. So I hope it works. And if not, maybe that we can go a little further and as far as incentivizing it. But I think this is a good start. And I really appreciate the fact that it's not mandatory. So I hope it works. I hope we get some rentals up here, because rental property is in and of itself affordable, in my opinion.
Thanks, Todd. Anyone else?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with what Todd says. I am a little concerned, though, with this idea of basically tacking on additional fee waivers at the last minute without a whole lot of public discussion on the matter. I mean, this is the second reading, and I think it's I don't want to say it's a fundamental change, but I think it's somewhat significant change to what's in the original language. And there's really nobody here to comment on that, listen to that from the public. And I don't think that's a good way of doing business when we start talking about more, fundamental isn't the right word, but more significant kind of changes to the language in this ordinance. I will vote for this ordinance, but I don't like the direction that some of this activity is going. I just want to make that public. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else? Stephen?
I'll echo some of that. We had this discussion in the work session this morning, and my only concern is that at what point, if you're going to start giving away these revenue streams, at what point does the city then become an entity that looks a whole lot like a financial institution that's financing part of a project with public funds, and that's of great concern to me. So I think it's really important that we monitor this very carefully. I will vote for it with the understanding, as we talked about this morning, that it is a work in progress. I would encourage everyone to monitor it very carefully to make sure that it's working as we had hoped it would, and if not, to try to determine why not, so that we don't just willy-nilly throw more mud at the wall and hope it sticks. So it's a concern.
Thanks, Stephen. I would just offer a comment in regard to the fact that the Garfield County Mayor's meetings for the last 3 meetings since last May have focused entirely on the subject of affordable housing. And at our last meeting, there was a list of tools that municipalities can use to try to facilitate the development of affordable housing. One of those items on the list was a reduction reduction or elimination of impact fees, and I think that's precisely what this goes to, and it is like opening the faucet on a sink, We may want to shut the faucet down a little bit, or maybe we want to open it up more, depending on how this works. But I think that this is a step in the right direction. I think we still have a long way to go on this whole subject of affordable housing, but I think this is one of those tools that we can implement, and I think it's going to hopefully be a net positive for the city. So, Leo.
I think Kathy.
Oh, sorry, Kathy.
Okay. I would echo what you've said. I don't think anyone would deny that we have a need for rental housing in this area. And this is an opportunity to create some infill, and it will benefit our employers, and it could potentially benefit homeowners and landowners. So it seems like a win-win for everyone, and I certainly hope it works as we have intended. But I think, as you pointed out, Mike, that the fact that we can change, amend, stop, whatever we need to do, we can tweak this if need be, so.
Thanks, Kathy. Leo.
I have mixed feelings about this. And in particular, I guess where my reservation falls is we're not set up to be a housing authority as a government. And so, and I know that's a little bit further ahead, but I'm thinking, tracking this stuff, I think it's a great incentive to waive all those fees, but I wonder, is it going to be harder for us to keep track of it once these things are built?
I think Garfield County Housing Authority
I will be asking
Okay.
Garfield County Housing Authority to
And
manage it.
that's really my main concern, because I think if this is ever going to work, then we have to start approving big developments that come to us that fit within what we want to do, so that these actually work. This isn't going to do anything for the guy who's building, scraping his house and rebuilding. This isn't doing, there's not a lot this will do for anything that's not big in scale. And I guess that's what I'm getting at is, if we're going to do this, then we have to be thinking big in scale and where that's going to work.
I do think that one of the, you remember the Lofts project, we approved that 2.5 years ago, I don't know, 3 years, however long ago it was, and it isn't built yet. And one of their big concerns was fees. And I believe, and I don't know this for a fact, but I've kind of heard through the grapevine that the approval of this is going to result in that being built. So that's 88 units. So that's
So
probably
they
a
would
good thing.
actually agree to deed restrict those rental prices? I hadn't heard that, that's.
No, again, that's not, I
Well,
wouldn't take that as
talk is
gospel.
cheap, so let's see what happens.
Yeah, yep, so,
Well, in fact, this isn't just for the big project, it's for the little project as well. If I want to build a garage and I don't have a garage and I want to put an apartment in there in my home, this is also good for running to an auxiliary dwelling unit as well. So I think that's a great benefit. I'm not a big fan of big, tall developments as I am infill, and I'd much rather have 100 units between here and Valley View Hospital than I would 100 units sitting on the street corners. So I think this is going to be a great benefit, and I know there's a lot of people that would have built apartments and did not because the fees are so extravagant.
I don't doubt that. Okay.
all right, any further discussion? Anyone want to make a motion?
Keep in mind, though, in order to get this fee waiver, you've got to agree to a deed restrict the rental income.
Yeah.
So it's not I don't see this as a handout, I see this as a win-win. And you either choose to do this and the city gets something for it. I mean, to me, the city's getting a great benefit out of this. So someone who's willing to go put, their time and money and energy and effort and risk on the line, the city's not getting nothing. We're getting
Sure.
units that are going to be affordable as per the process that you gotta go do to figure out what you can rent them for. But, so, for a lot of people, this isn't gonna cut it. So, but for the people who choose to, good for them and good for us.
With
Well-
that, oh, go ahead.
I'm saying the city it's not like we're getting anything, we're exchanging, impact remuneration for, what we consider, an improved quality of life, for folks that wanna be in Glenwood Springs, and, hopefully improved opportunities for, folks, operating businesses in Glenwood Springs to have a better pool of potential labor and things of that nature, and basically a healthier community. So I think it's a fair trade-off, but, it's not like we're just getting something. There is a trade here, and,
Yeah,
I
we're
think the
giving up
exchange
some.
is a fair one, and probably a good one at this point in time. Housing is a problem, and it's starting to impact the way people do their business around here. And this is a way of addressing it. And maybe we do more in the space, maybe we do less, I don't know, but we'll start. So.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but isn't the deed restriction contained in here 30 years?
It is.
Yeah, okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
With that, I'd move to approve ordinance number 36, series of 2016.
33.
I'm sorry, 30.
Oh, nope, you're
No,
right. I was
36.
looking at the wrong one. Never mind, you're right.
Ordinance number 36, series of 2016, as stated in this evening's agenda. And
Second.
as updated by Carl this afternoon.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Leo and a second by Kathy to approve ordinance number 36, series of 2016. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
Trotter, yes. McKenney, yes. Davis, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Steckler, yes. Berkey, yes. Motion passes.
All right, now we have a report from our city manager.
Okay. I have a couple things to add besides what was on there, and I'm not even quite what I had on there when I did. I flew last week when I was looking at the agenda.
There's a lot of that going on.
You guys had asked us to look at what other municipalities were charging for an excise tax on marijuana. Staff called around to the other towns. I would say, we put it in a chart, but our closest municipalities are indeed charging an excise tax of 5%, Carbondale and Basalt. I know there was some fear that people might want to shop around if we charge too much. I think we would probably be okay. That would not happen.
I think you're right.
So,
Does Vail not allow marijuana in Vail?
correct.
Oh, I didn't know.
This doesn't include the state sales, the other sales.
It does not. This is just what municipalities are
Okay,
charging.
'cause I think that would be, including the total tax somebody pays when they go buy their weed,
Yeah.
would be more pertinent to this discussion than just looking at whether or not our neighbors tack on a few extra percentage points.
But they're going to have to pay that.
Well, I'm just saying
Anyway.
that that's part of the discussion. If you're, we're talking about a product that's already taxed around 20 to 25%. It's pertinent. Maybe not, maybe it's not a deal killer, but it is important to know.
Do you think it's discouraging people from buying it?
Oh, hell no. Heck no. Sorry. I think sales, as evidenced by the state's numbers that they provide us, are contrary to that.
I think it is truly a political question.
Yeah.
Do we want to have an excise tax on it or not? And
Personally, I think we're foolish if we don't. You know, I know, I'm not, you don't have the numbers on here that could tell us approximately how
I
much.
did do a really quick look on it, and I think if we put the 5% excise tax on just retail, based upon numbers from January to November of this year, it would raise a little over $300,000.
300?
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's $250,000.
There's the council trip to Tahiti.
I would, it would be a lot easier for me to buy into this if we were saying, okay, this extra 5% that we're tacking onto it, that's gonna pay for 2 or 3 foot patrolmen downtown, or, you know, that we specifically say that we're gonna use that for something other than
I
just.
would love to tie it
I don't know
to
if we
public
can do that.
safety
Yeah.
and, well,
And education.
I think we can, and education.
Yeah, and.
Maybe
and
do a grant program to work with
Right.
school district, youth zone.
There is a group, the Merrill, I can't remember what the
I have it,
Valley.
because they just contacted me.
Yeah,
Let me find it
Brad
here.
Benson.
Yeah.
No, that-
But-
that's-
But the marijuana commission, they are active and they are moving and they are doing some education and they would like, they will probably be coming to us
Yeah,
asking for
Vale
some.
Marijuana,
Yeah.
the Vale Marijuana Council.
Valley, yeah, is it Valley?
Valley Marijuana, I'm sorry, Vale, not Vale. Sorry, I had Vale. I was thinking of Vale, like VALE or Vale program.
Yeah.
Valley, yeah, the Valley Marijuana Council.
And they're doing, they've got, they've started a model program. They probably will be coming to us at some point to tell us a little bit about that. But even if a portion of that could go to education, it helps with the schools and,
I think an educational component could also be some sort of outreach to our tourist community that come here. And, you know, they don't know that you can't eat 5 gummy bears at one time or whatever it is that, you know.
yeah, I'm not feeling it
Right,
right now.
right.
15
And,
minutes.
I mean,
We can put it in the commercials Jen is working
I
on.
would love that campaign.
Yeah, the How to Appropriately Use Infused Products
Exactly.
campaign.
I guess,
Anyway, I think there's a lot of educational opportunities, is all I'm saying.
I think the chamber actually just put out a press release literally within the last week or two about that, about where you can use it and how you should and should not use it and all that kind of stuff, and so.
And I,
we don't
Are
have
these
a lot
tested
of,
kind of recommendations, road tested by?
I doubt it, I doubt it.
All right, with the following.
we don't have a lot of
wondering.
time on this.
Right.
So I think what I'm looking for tonight is staff go ahead, work on this, and then we will either, depending on what the calendar
Are you
looks
talking
like.
for the April election?
Yeah, it'd have to be the April election or else
We
it'll
have to
be,
get it in very soon.
yeah, pretty
I mean,
much.
I think it's a good idea, but I'd like to see some rigorous analysis. I mean, if it's just coming from the folks that don't like marijuana and just want to throw a tax on it, we're treating this like a regular business, and this doesn't seem like a way to treat a regular business. It's just tax, 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 tax. But if we can tie it to an effort to educate our children or do something in the space that mitigates some of the problems that we see out there, and that we can explicitly identify what those problems are, and we know this money can change the direction of some people's lives, yeah, maybe we can do that.
I asked,
But I don't want to tax just because some people consider this a sin product and we need to tax it. And
No.
I just feel that's part of
Well,
what's
it's kind of like
driving
the Bloomberg soda tax in New York City.
this. Yeah,
honestly, I will not,
and and if this is an easy way to tax our people more, I'm not for that either.
we can
All
talk
right,
about it
Steve.
more at the following work session. I know I will not be able to lay out to you, marijuana costs us $200,000 a year in police and fire protection. You know, I asked police and fire department and they just said, no.
Okay, they say
So-
no, so the Gould says there's an impact, so we're like.
Well,
that's
no,
no
they
impact.
say no, they can't
Quantify.
quantify it.
Oh,
They didn't say that there's not an impact, they just said they can't quantify it. Steve Davis
I just heard-
has a comment. Steve?
Thank you. You know, I would say that I wouldn't support it as Counselor Steckler said, is just a general revenue draw. If it was specifically, and I think we have a real need for education in our schools, and I think we have a real need for enforcement, additional enforcement. So if it was tied specifically, and not just to the general police fund, but to foot patrol, which we've been trying to achieve downtown for a number of years and haven't been able to do that. If this specifically funded those elements, then I would support it.
That's kind of how I feel too.
So the general consensus is, yes, I think we want to move forward with trying to put this on the ballot on the April election. Is that?
Yes.
We'll figure out what needs to get done and get it in front of you when we need to get it in front of you.
Okay.
And, you know, the other thing I'd like to say is that that doesn't necessarily mean you have to hire police officers. It could be just a security service. I was in Denver over New Year's. You go into the Union Station. It's not police officers carrying guns around and enforcing the rules. It's a security service that does it. We seem to have a hard time hiring officers, but I'm sure on the free market, you wouldn't have a problem hiring security personnel to just make a presence.
See, I agree with that. I just talked to a friend of mine who's a deputy sheriff in Omaha, and they're changing their entire jail system up to public service. Like, I mean, they're taking all the deputies out because of the cost, and they're gonna run it with a system like that, where people aren't deputized, where you're not spending that much money in training, when you're not asking them to do the level of service that a deputy might need to be trained to do. We just want extra foot patrol. So I think there is a private sector solution to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the only other thing I really had was I sent you guys the former parking study. I've read through it, I'm sure you guys haven't had a chance to read through it.
Was that the one that didn't ever get finished or adopted or?
Correct.
Oh,
It's from
it was
2013.
Never released, yes.
You sent
I
that
don't-
to us?
Yeah.
I did.
Oh, okay, sorry, I missed it.
It's okay. I think both Leslie and I talked, she would like to start acting on it, so she was gonna kind of start working on strategies to move it forward.
Do we need to adopt it first?
I can bring it back and we can officially adopt it. But I think it has some good information in it that we would be foolish not to start working.
It does.
I don't think we have
actually-
to adopt it, I'm sorry, don't have to do anything with the document. But if there are ideas in there that are worth pursuing, we can certainly talk about those and
I guess that's
provide
more.
direction.
Yeah, I studied it front to back.
Did
And
you?
there is quite a few good elements to it. There's some that I would question, and are you ready for comments on that? Tonight?
I can take some comments, or we can wait until we sort through it and.
No kidding.
It was either watch the football game or read the
No,
document.
it seems foolish to pay for a study and just toss it in the trash. I think there's certainly something we can build off of there, just like ordinance number 36. And we can change it along the way. We can mold that.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now can we go home?
Not quite.
Yes, I'm done. You can go home.
Yeah, you're done. Did we want to discuss the city manager evaluation format?
I sent 2 forms out to you guys. It's totally up to you whether you want to use the forms, if you just want to do it how we typically do it. Whatever you would like to do.
I would certainly defer to council on that as well.
I don't know, I think we have a good enough relationship with Deborah to just sit down and talk to her about, we have some concerns. I'm not against using forms for documentation, but I also think that face-to-face is preferred.
I'll weigh in just to say that I looked at both forms. I like the ICMA form simply because it was the way it was organized as nothing more maybe than a tool to keep my feeble brain in focus with regard to the salient points that I want to make.
There's a guiding.
But I think it can be more freeform than just, this is your rating, this is your rating, this is okay. I don't think that accomplishes much.
I think the only.
We're in a much
Can you
more
lift,
dynamic
can you lift
situation than that.
15 pounds and move it up, you know, I don't know what that one form
I
said.
can, yes, that's
30
the one we use for internally.
I think the value of the form, no matter what it is it provides the same basis for all 7 of us to start the conversation. You know, I don't think we need a form to tell Deborah what we think of her performance, but as an organizational tool, it might be helpful. So how could the ICMA tool just fill with those things too?
And could we do that at the brew pub instead of?
You know, I am the envy of my colleagues because I had an executive session that included alcohol, so.
Oh, that's right. All right.
So when we talk about a tax on marijuana, what do we do with that session?
Where can we go to?
What happens then?
There's no problem.
There's no club yet.
Has to be sampling or make an objective.
Miguel.
Okay, do we have anything from the city attorney?
We don't. I did want to really commend you guys on Ordinance 36. It is a start, and I think it is a unique way to do it because, as Todd said, so many jurisdictions sort of approach it not from a voluntary engagement standpoint, and you guys are, and I think that's very cool and something to be, that I'm hoping works because it feels a lot better to do it that way.
Well, I agree, and the other side of that is that the last effort we made was in good faith, but was virtually useless because it was simply, I'll write you a check for a fee in lieu and I don't have to do this.
Right.
And this is, like you say, voluntary, but it also makes a real commitment to the future with a 30-year term, and so I'm very excited about it.
I hope it generates a bunch of rentals, because we need them.
Yeah, for sure.
It introduces
Yeah, and I-
flexibility, and, I'm sorry. It just makes it, I think, more flexible, and, you know, maybe our development friends are right, and maybe that's just enough to trigger action. Things happen. I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see.
And I thank you, Carl, for helping us figure that out, because I don't think we would have ever gotten there
And John,
without your
yeah.
imagination.
Yeah, and John out of my office worked hard on it as well, so thank you guys.
All right, thank you. So I think we're done. Meeting adjourned.
Driveway.